So after very much careful thought and deliberation, consulting with your tax and legal professionals, you've determined that it's the best move for your business to elect to be taxed as an S Corp. Good for you. So where do we go from here? How do we do this thing? Don't go anywhere, because I'm going to show you how to make an S Corp election in addition to all the cans and can'ts of doing so. Hi everyone, welcome back to All Up in Your Business. I'm Aiden Durham, business and branding attorney with 180 Law Co. in Colorado, and I have helped hundreds of clients set up successful and tax-efficient businesses. Last week's video, I talked about the differences between an LLC and an S corporation, exactly what it means to be taxed as an S corporation and how it differs versus being taxed as an LLC or a sole proprietorship or a partnership. If you want info on what an S Corp is or what it means to be an S Corp, check back to last week's video. But this time around, now that we know what it is and why it is, we're going to talk about how to do it. Once you've decided that S Corp is the right move for you, what do? How do you do it? And when do you need to do it? But first, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that little notification bell so you get notified anytime I post a new video and you don't miss any more hot legal tips. So before we get into how you make an S Corp election, it's important to know that not every business is eligible to be taxed as an S corporation. There are certain restrictions that the IRS puts on us about who can and can't be taxed as an S corporation. So some of those restrictions for S Corps: number one, there can't be more than 100 shareholders or owners in the company. All of them must be U.S. citizens or permanent legal residents in the U.S. They must be private individuals, so you can't have another LLC or a corporation or certain types of trusts own or be a shareholder in an S corporation, though there are a few exceptions to that. And you can only have one class of stock. So assuming you meet all those requirements and restrictions for an S Corp and you're eligible to make the S Corp election, the next thing you need to know is when the right time is to do it. Again, not only can not everybody make an S Corp election, you also can't make an S Corp election anytime you please. There are certain deadlines that the IRS places on when we can and can't do this. So the general rule about when to make an S Corp election is that it has to be made within 75 days of the beginning of the tax year in order for the S Corp election to be effective that year. So in other words, if our business has already existed, let's say we're in 2022 now, if I set up my business in 2021 and I didn't make an S Corp election, I have 75 days into 2022 to make that election for it to be effective 2022. And 75 days, the IRS also, it's 75 days / 2 months and 15 days, I think is the technical deadline. It's not 75 days, it's 2 months and 15 days. But you know, roughly speaking, 75 days. If you miss that 75-day deadline, you can still file the election, but it won't be effective until the following tax year. And the same rules apply for a shortened tax year. In other words, if you've just started your business. If you just start your business, let's say in the middle of the year, and you know right off the bat you want to be taxed as an S corporation, then you've got that 75 days from the date that the company is formed, from the date the company starts, to make that election for it to be effective for the remainder of that tax year. Now, of course, there are ways to make a late election. If you miss that deadline, you can request a late election relief, and you have to have reasonable grounds for doing so, but it is possible to still make the S Corp election late after that 75-day deadline, but you just have to have a sufficient grounds for why you're doing so. But let's not go into that. Let's focus on that 75-day deadline to be safe. All right, so we know we are eligible to make the S Corp election. We are within our deadline to do it. So how do we do it? We are going to make this S Corp election using IRS Form 2553, election by a small business corporation, I think is the title of it. I don't know, Googling IRS Form 2553, or you can find it on the IRS's website. It is free to download. You don't have to pay anything for it. You want to find IRS Form 2553. So we'll take a look at this form, fill out some basic information about the company and its tax status, all of that, and information about the shareholders or the owners of the company. And we do need the consent of all the shareholders too. So it's just a matter of accurately completing this form and submitting it to the IRS. Of course, we want to be careful and make sure we're filling out this form correctly and putting the correct information and not missing anything or getting anything wrong. So of course, it's a good idea to have a CPA, a tax professional, or an attorney help you with this form. Make sure it's correct before you submit it. Once we've got it all filled out though, we submit it to the IRS. We can mail it in or fax it in. Again, on the IRS's website, they've got directions, or if you look up the instructions for Form 2553, you'll find where to submit it. But so we'll submit this form to the IRS, and then typically in about 60 days or so, we'll hear back from them whether it was accepted or not. So great, woo! Now we've done it. We are taxed as an S corporation. Job done, right? Wrong. Again, check back to that video I made last week, you guys, because I talk about when it's not the right move to make an S Corp election, because it's not just a matter of filing some paperwork with the IRS and now we're done. There's more that goes into it. And if you're not ready for all that more that goes into it, then you probably shouldn't make the S Corp election. So now that we've done it, we need to set up payroll, because we are now employees of the company and we need to take a reasonable salary from the company in addition to our distributions or shareholder dividends. So whether this is working with your tax professional or using a payroll system, one way or the other, we're gonna want to set ourselves up on payroll so we can start paying ourselves a salary. And then talking about that salary, we need to make sure we are paying ourselves a reasonable salary. Again, like I mentioned in that last video, there's no bright line rule about what is or isn't reasonable. We only have guidelines and opinions really from the IRS to go off of. So again, it's really important that you consult with a tax professional to make sure the salary that you're paying yourself is going to be considered reasonable in the IRS's eyes, so we don't get in trouble and have to pay fines and back taxes and all that jazz. If you're starting a business, brand new business, and you're thinking about making an S Corp election, you definitely want to consult with an accountant or a CPA first. But even if your business is already established and you're pretty sure you know what you're doing, it's still a really good idea to consult with a pro to make sure you're doing it all right and to just have some help with everything else that comes next. Because like I said, with that payroll, we got to set up. We got to make sure we're paying ourselves reasonable salary. We have to start making payments for payroll taxes and doing different kinds of tax filings as an S corporation now. So all of that stuff, you want to make sure you're not going to miss something and that you're going to be taken care of. So of course, please, please, please get a good tax pro on your side to help you out with it. And if you want to know more about the things that you should be doing when you're starting a business, check the link in the description for a link to download my ultimate new business checklist for free. So the process for making the S Corp election for most of us really isn't going to be that complex. Assuming we meet the requirements that the IRS has and we're within that 75-day deadline to meet the election, it's just a matter of completing that form properly and submitting it to the IRS. That's the tax election part. You only have to do that one time. This isn't an annual thing. You don't have to make this election over and over again. You do it once and it's done until something changes. But like I said, it's not just a matter of submitting the paperwork and you're done. You've got to continue to make sure you're doing the right things and properly handling your money and your taxes so that the IRS doesn't come knocking and you know, start fishing around and maybe thinking about maybe this S Corp thing wasn't the right move. Believe me, your future business and your future self will thank you if you make all the right tax moves from the very beginning. If you got value out of this video, hit that thumbs up button to give me a like, maybe click the share button to share with all your friends and family. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new all up in your businesses. All up in your businesses. All up in your businesses. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.